Welcome everyone to the showdown between the Dwarves, who shall be led by Grombrindle. And today, guys, we face off against Bretonnia, who shall be led by the Fey Enchantress, coming in hard with the dreaded double Hippogriff Knight. So you don't see that terribly often, but certainly very powerful against the Dwarves with their heavy armor-piercing values. Now, as far as my build goes, it's really going to be anchored upon this Organ Gun here on the hill. So I feel like the Organ Gun in this matchup, not of course in every matchup, but in this matchup, I feel like it's a little bit better than the cannon. I've been trying it out quite a bit. Yes, the range is a little bit shorter, but what's cool about the Organ Gun compared to the cannon, it's really good against cav units. So for example, if the Organ Gun gets like a square shot against some charging knights errant or questing knights or whatever it may be, it's going to be tearing them apart and doing a ton of damage. But also, the Organ Gun is much better against infantry. So if you're dealing with a ton of archers or even foot squires, it's going to be able to put a lot more hurt on infantry compared to a cannon. And it's not bad against single entities. The cannon probably is better against things like King Lewin and these flying monstrous characters, but nonetheless, the Organ Gun can still do some serious hurt. So we do have it back here on the hill, and it's going to be teeing off on some filthy peasants. Up here in the front, a couple miners with blasting charges. And again, I was expecting a lot of peasants, men-at-arms, and miners are actually really good against all those targets. Basically, you march these bad boys forward, they drop their blasting charges on the peasants, and you prosper. It's a pretty good trade, and they have decent AP, so if they have to fight cav units and things like that, yeah, they'll lose, but they at least can put a dent in them with their little pickaxes. For my front line, it's going to be Longbeards. Longbeards are just MVPs in the Dwarf roster. Extremely powerful. They're immune to psychology, so Hippogriff Knights won't terror out them. On top of that, they do also have a whopping 48 melee defense, which for the cost, I think that Longbeards, like for that kind of mid-tier infantry unit, are probably one of the best in the entire game. So very, very solid unit there. In the back, we do have a pretty substantial gun lines. We have 3 Dwarven Thunders that are going to be backed up by more Longbeards, Dwarf Warriors on the flanks, and then the Dragonback Slayers, as well as a group of Giant Slayers who are going to be hiding in the trees. And you can see that they're waiting to pounce, waiting to ambush. But I definitely like to have a lot of Slayers against Bretonnia. Giant Slayers can certainly do some work, and I think that the Dragonback Slayers are pretty much a staple because of the fact that they have an ingrained slow. So a lot of people actually don't know this who are newer to the game, but if you take a look, Dragonback Slayers have an ability called the Power of the Dragonback. So whenever they hit something, even if a single model just gets his glorious Dwarven axe into the heel of a Bretonnian Knight, it's going to be slowing down their speed by 36%, which is really, really substantial for sure. Last but not least, for our leadership kit, we do have a Runesmith as well as Grombrindle the White Dwarf. So we have a Rune of Wrath and Rune here. We have Grombrindle with his Flash Bomb and very, very good at slowing. And he also has enough AP to fight back against like big Bretonnian lords. So that's pretty much it for my force. And now for the hordes of Bretonnia, going to be going very, very, I mean, they have a huge peasant army, but most of the financial investment in this army is in the double Hippogriff Knights. So these bad boys have 135 weapon strength, a charge bonus of 50, pretty good physical resist, 90 armor. They're relatively durable and they hit very, very hard for sure. Now, a little bit susceptible to being focus fired by my gun lines and things like that. But if Arrow is able to get those bad boys down, shut down my guns with his cav, these guys will tear apart most Dwarven infantry for sure. So 2 Hippogriff Knights here. And for his cav units, he has 2 groups of Knights Errant, which are going to be trying to get into the back line, cause some havoc. And for the main force, it's going to be a ton of peasant mobs, a bunch of peasant archers, and 2 men-at-arms. So in total, I think he has 1, 2, 3, 4, oh wow. Looks like in total it's going to be 8 of the peasant bowmen. So they're actually pretty decent against dwarves in dealing with slayers. So for example, you get them in, if there's Dragonback Slayers or Giant Slayers in the back line, you're able to get some good, arcs of fire on those guys. You can really tear them apart pretty effectively. But yeah, relatively uncommon, I guess. I'm trying to think what the standard Bretonnian style of play was. I guess back in the day it was a lot of foot squires and questing knights and things like that. But Hippogriff Knights have been buffed pretty heavily over the past year or so. They've gotten a couple nice little tweaks. So perhaps they are the new kids on the block. Now let's get the show on the road, guys, and have some fun. So the blasting charge miners coming in, trying to get some charges here on the peasant mobs. And yeah, unfortunately, they're going to be taking a lot of ammunition here from the archers. But basically, I just have to waste the ammunition here of the archers. And if they're going to be shooting miners, they're not shielded, but they do have 80 armor. And of course, peasant bowmen do have really, really bad AP value. So it's not going to be the worst trade in the world here for myself. But yeah, still taking some casualties here. We have lost about 7 miners here. And right here, we've lost none, actually. So they're in pretty good shape. In the meantime, the organ gun to the back, taking some pot shots against these knights. Unfortunately, if you ride around the organ gun and they have to kind of rotate it, you're going to be losing a lot of time. So it's more efficient to kind of change angles here. And right there, we take out a couple knights. The organ gun doing some serious damage to those guys as they approach. We also get them with a Rune of Wrath and Rune. And the Dwarven Thunders are going to be opening up here on these Knights Errant, who now have 21 speed. So getting some serious just firepower into these guys. But now Arrow's going to be kind of surging into the back line with these Knights Errant here. He has a little bit of an opening. Now my Giant Slayers will rush in to intercept, but he has that opening here, and the Dwarves are a little bit too slow to react. So unfortunately, this Knight is going to be getting into the back line. He won't get my organ gun. because I do rotate my Dragonback Slayers, but he is going to be getting into my gun line a little bit, which is unfortunate. Now, Gromby is waiting there, and the reason I put him in the middle is for that exact purpose. He pops a Flash Bomb, and that's going to really slow these guys down and allow the Dwarven Slayers to come in and do some serious damage. 76% speed debuff is pretty good. So here come the Giant Slayers. They're going to be chopping down some of these Knights Errant for sure with that heavy AP and that bonus first large. And you can see the Knights Errant are pretty much going to be out of the picture, taking some huge damage. But on that same note, you know, it does open up other opportunities in the army. And the Peasant Bowmen now, with just massive volumes of fire coming into my guns. Hippogriff Knights are going to be jumping in as well. Things are getting very, very messy for sure. But the Organ Gun is shooting into the Hippogriff Knights here, and they are taking some damage from the combined fighting power here of the Runesmith as well as these Dwarf Warriors. So yeah, getting a little bit of work done there. Now in the main pocket, you can see the Knights Errant are pretty much shattered up. One group of my guns did take a lot of damage from that charge on the Royal Hippogriff Knights. The other one's in okay shape. And of course, my Dwarven Infantry are going to be very happy in this situation. Longbeards are just going to beat the brakes off these peasants here. And you can see there's headbutts, there's Dwarven karate kicks, all kinds of good stuff going on here. Now up in the sky, the Royal Hippogriff Knights are going to be coming back in for another charge. And they have taken some damage. The other group here is in okay shape as well. So though he's going to have to bounce back and forth, I still have the Organ Gun online. And I still do also have the Dwarven Thunderers. This Organ Gun is now shooting at some of the Peasant Archers, which in retrospect I think was a bit of a mistake. Yeah, it's pretty good, but he has 8 of those guys, and I think it's better at this point just to wait out the ammunition, but yeah, for now it's going to be shooting at the Peasant Mobs and hopefully doing some work. Now these guns are shooting back up in the sky, but really nice play by Arrow, just bouncing back and forth and slamming into my front line here. These Longbeards taking a huge punch here from these Royal Hippogriff Knights. Now Slayers are hot on their tail, but it's still really, really tough for my ground troops to keep up with these guys, so I really need to make sure that my gun line stays optimal here and keeps firing. So Organ Gun here continuing to shoot, but it will be switching in just a moment. It looks like a Comet of Cassandora coming down from the Fey Enchantress is going to be dropped on my Longbeards, which is unfortunate, but those Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors do have pretty good magic resist, so it's not going to be the end of the world, as it looks like it kind of hit a bit of an open pocket there and doesn't do too much work. Now, as far as the bounce of power goes, it's pretty even at this point. My Slayers in the back are just kind of charging back and forth, trying to deal with these cab units. And it looks like finally we are going to be able to deal with them. I think both of the Knights Errant are going to be shattered or pushed off the battlefield here in just a moment. Negative 43 on those guys. They are certainly not happy about the situation. And you can see here the Royal Hippogriff Knights are still in good shape. Arrow's done a really good job with them. 6 models here and 6 here, so he hasn't even lost a single model, which means they can still really benefit from the heals from the Fey Enchantress, so I really got to be careful about that. Nonetheless, Grombrindle has no fear, has been popped to keep some of my troops in the back. I was trying to save this missile unit from running, but unfortunately did run anyways. And at this point, obviously, we did win the frontline engagement, so I'm just going to be sending in the Longbeards, just pushing them up to fight men-at-arms and to push back towards the bow line. And if Longbeards are being shot, that's extremely cost-effective for me. Same with the Dwarf Warriors as well, because they have armor, they have shields. It's a very, very good trade. Now my guns are back online as well, so I do have the Thunders as well as the Organ Guns, which are now teeing off up in the sky against the Royal Hippogriff Knights, but a really nice heal going down there. He is able to get us massive value on those hippos, and you can see it does actually pull the bounce of power back in the favor of Bretonnia, so very, very scary situation. Now, it wasn't, it didn't feel that bad in the moment though, because I still have the Giant Slayers back here, and the Hippogriff Knights are going to be jumping in, knowing that the gun units, if they keep shooting, are going to be the end of them. So I think it looks like they're going to go in for an Alpha Strike here, try and shut down my guns, and then pull out. But I did have a Flash Bomb waiting in the wing, so the Flash Bomb here is able to slow these guys down, and a lot of the Hippogriff Knights are going to be getting chopped down by Giant Slayers, and Grombrindle's here as well, and of course he hits like an absolute truck, so if Gromby can get a single attack, he'll most certainly take out a Hippogriff Knight model. So the Dwarves are swarming in, and it looks like the Hippogriff Knights have lost a model, and now it's going to be kind of a cascade. They're very low HP, they only have 5 models, well they have 5 models of 6, so that's quite a bit, but every time they take a little bit of fire now, they are going to be losing models. So down to 4 right there. The other Hippogriff Knights in the distance going to be going for a bit of a safe engagement here against these Longbeards. Certainly not a bad idea, but you can see this Royal Hippogriff Knight is really just beat up here and is going to be running for the hills. Longbeards, of course, doing what Longbeards do, just enduring and pushing forward, shaken, but they're just grinding their way through the peasant mobs just like lawnmowers. 120 kills on this group right here. Only 17 on these Dwarf Warriors, and these guys only have 1 kill as well, but those are Dwarf Warriors as well. And these Longbeards in the front, 58, 60 kills, but now this is great. We're getting into the gun line, or I should say the bow line here for the Bretonnians. Some Knights Errant are coming back in to help out a little bit, but there's just Longbeards and elite pressure coming in from the Dwarves everywhere. And the longer this goes, the better for me, because my Organ Gun is still firing and it's almost used all of its ammunition. So now the Organ Guns are going to be targeting the Hippogriff Knights, which are pretty much the last threat. As far as like everything else on the Bretonnian roster that is currently fighting, you have peasant mobs, you have peasant archers, but none of those things are really just going to end me like Hippogriff Knights could. So, favor of the Fae is going to be going down on these guys, but it looks like they are going to be pulling out, dodging a couple shots there from these Organ Guns, which are struggling to make contact with these very fast bird people. 90 speed, certainly no joke. And it looks like the other Hippogriff Knights are coming back as well. But the Dwarven Thunders, these old Deadeyes are going to be getting them. And man, they're getting some heavy firepower, forcing those Hippogriff Knights back. As another group in the distance does come back in, you can see a Hippo fall right there. And every one that falls is like a huge value train. And as far as the ammunition goes for Bretonnia, that's one of the reasons why the balance of power is also normalizing a little bit. Organ guns now switching targets onto the peasant bowmen here. But nonetheless, as they run out of ammo, it does affect the balance of power because simply they're not going to have enough to deal with the sheer amount of Longbeards left on the battlefield. So Enchantress here in a little bit of trouble. Grombrindle does pop his smoke bomb, slowing her down to, what is her speed right now? Ooh, 9 speed. That's brutal. Wait, that can't be right. 9 speed? Yeah, I guess so. Oh, and she's also poisoned by the peasant bowman archers. I was wondering why she's so slow, but yes, the fellow Bretonnians trying to take down the leadership, so perhaps they can rise up and revolt a little bit later on. But Enchantress here does get a couple brutal attacks there from Grombrindle. Now in the back line, some peasant mobs have jumped back here to attack my artillery piece. They came out of nowhere, but the Giant Slayers, though they're not meant to fight infantry, are certainly more than up to the task of taking apart these malnourished Bretonnian peasants. So here comes that poor guy right there, just got an axe right in the back. But as far as the battle goes, it's looking pretty good for the proud Dawi. 42 Longbeards right here, 27 right here. In the distance, we have 49 chasing off those archers, and you can see they just like take those arrow bolts like absolute champs. Enchantress is going to be jumping over here to help out some of those Hippogriff Knights, but yeah, I still have the guns online. We have these Thunders with 30 models. Organ Gun is about to run out of ammo. It looks like it just reached a 0 ammo, so it's probably not going to have too much to contribute to the battlefield. So the Bretonnians may have a chance to kind of reorganize some forces. They do have a fair amount of these peasant archers kind of running around the battlefield here, but it's looking pretty grim. As you can see, the Enchantress is going to be fighting to the bitter end here against these Longbeards, and I am able to secure my gun line, and from there, that is going to be all she wrote for the forces of Bretonnia. So well played. It was a really fun game for sure. I think it was a good showcase of the organ gun. It got 151 kills, and for most of the game, it was shooting cab units. It was shooting against the, what are those things called? The Knights Errant. It was shooting up against the Royal Hippogriff Knights. So for the most part, it was shooting, high-value targets over the course of the whole game, which was great. And I mean, cannons are certainly pretty good against cab units, but I really felt like there was great dual purpose on the organ gun. I felt like it, when it wanted to, it did good damage against infantry, whereas a cannon would have taken forever to take out infantry, and it also just wrecks cab units. I think it's a little bit more effective, granted, at the cost of range. So if you're on a really big map, maybe the cannon would be the smarter pick. Hard to say. Longbeards, of course, just MVPs as usual. The Dwarven Thunders got a lot of pressure, but the entire game they were shooting at big single entity or low entity targets like the Royal Hippogriff Knights, so that justifies their kills for sure. And Grombrindle's an absolute beast. Having flash bombs are just really useful. Runes of Wrath and Ruin are really good, but again, I still did get that from the Runesmith here, which I think was plenty. And now for Arrow's army, I think it was really strong. It was a close game. Obviously, a couple little catches here and there with the flash bombs and things like that led to the downfall of those Hippogriff Knights, which was the deciding factor. He had some really good plays, sneaking the Knights into the back line, jumping on top of my Thunderers. Like, getting them that quick was pretty brutal for sure. Like, that was a huge mistake on my part and a great play on his part. So make sure to check out Arrow on YouTube if you haven't. This was one of, I believe, 3 games we played, so the other 2 will be going up. They'll probably go up before this one, actually, but anyways, this was one of the 3, so you guys will be seeing all 3 of those glorious matches. So thanks again to Arrow for the games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Dwarf vs. Bretonnian showdown, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care.